So while this channel was taken out of commission for 4 or 5 or 6 days thanks to an uncooperative and stubborn air conditioning unit, Donald Trump selfishly decided to get indicted for like a third time, this time by Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis. And boy, is it a doozy. So we have a lot to catch up on. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. So folks, where to begin? There is a lot that's gone on, and for the past nearly a week, I have been relegated to trolling conservatives on Twitter and providing text commentary, whereas I'd rather be doing this on camera. So let's try to catch up. First, I want to play this clip from the press conference in Fulton County, Georgia, in which Fani Willis finally unleashed the announcement of her very ambitious indictment against Donald Trump and many, many others. We could play the whole thing, but to me, this is the most pertinent part of the press conference, and then we will unpack the rest of it together.
The arguments made by former President Trump that this is a politically motivated indictment.
I make decisions in this office based on the facts and the law. The law is completely nonpartisan. That's how decisions are made in every case. To date, this office has indicted, since I've been sitting as a district attorney, over 12,000 cases. This is the 11th RICO indictment. We followed the same process. We look at the facts, we look at the law, and we bring charges.
Now, I love how cool and calm and professional she is. I mean, this woman, I think, legally is a stone-cold killer, right? She seems like she is unafraid whatsoever, especially when you consider the fact that she is up against the biggest target of her life. You know, Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party. The GOP is a fascistic, authoritarian cult of personality. He may very well end up the duly elected president of the United States in 2024, and yet as a district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, which is, I think, the biggest county, it's the county that includes Atlanta, she's going after him with fierceness, and I respect that. Now, obviously, Republicans, of course, reject her answer. They, of course, regard this as partisan and, you know, politically motivated and all the things, right? But, of course, that's how they feel about any indictment against Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, as far as Republicans are concerned, above the law, which probably merits its own 2 or 3 videos, given the ridiculous comments that have come from the GOP and their surrogates since this indictment came out. However, I do want to draw your attention back to the indictment itself. So Axios, of course, has the most concise breakdowns of all these things. Normally, we would dive into like a WAPO article or New York Times, but got to make good on time. So this is the 4th indictment against Donald Trump since April. He has now pled not guilty to state charges in a hush money case, federal charges in a classified documents case, and federal charges in an election conspiracy case, those 2, of course, being brought by special counsel Jack Smith. And, of course, this indictment from Fani Willis does concern, I guess it runs kind of parallel to Jack Smith's case, it does concern Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election, particularly with regards to his conduct pertaining to Florida. You know, so like the perfect phone call that I did where he asked Georgia election officials to find him exactly 1 more vote, just 1 more vote. That's all he needed. 11,780, just 1 more vote than what then President-elect Joe Biden won. I mean, pretty transparently disingenuous, as well as his attempts to pressure Georgia election workers and engage in fake elector schemes, et cetera, and so forth. This is a pretty lengthy indictment, especially when you consider all the co-conspirators. Oh my God, there are, was it 18 co-conspirators, 19 conspirators, including Trump, 18 if you don't include him. I mean, it's huge. It's just like basically the list of the infernal council of the Trump administration. You got Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Mark Meadows. That was a big one. So many people suspected that perhaps Mark Meadows, who was Donald Trump's chief of staff, his last chief of staff, because he wasn't an indicted co-conspirator in any other of the indictments that have been brought against Trump so far. Many people were speculating that perhaps he flipped on Trump. And now, to be clear, this indictment, the fact that Meadows is named in this indictment, doesn't preclude the possibility that Mark Meadows has indeed been a cooperating witness to Jack Smith. So these things aren't mutually exclusive, but now Meadows is feeling the pressure. And there are many, many counts here, folks. And now this this indictment, I was going to say it's a narrative indictment. There are multiple types of indictments where they kind of like lay out a story. It's like it's supposed to be like super readable, even to laymen. This one is even more concise. I mean, it offers like a 1-paragraph introduction. It offers, descriptions of who the people are involved. And then it goes into like a count-by-count basis. Act 1, here's what Trump did on this date, blah, 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 blah. I mean, just like short, blunt paragraphs all the way. way. It's about 98 pages long, though, so it's still a pretty hefty read. Now, in addition to all that, I mean, the commentary is that even though the case against Donald Trump here is pretty strong, just as the two Jack Smith cases are pretty strong, Fani Willis is taking a risk here because, you look at Jack Smith as, Jack Smith's case, as Axios points out, was narrowly tailored against Trump himself and 6 unindicted co-conspirators who may not receive indictments at all. And I think in the classified documents case, there was like 1 or 2 other defendants as well, people. I think it was like Trump's body man, Walt Nada, or something like that. So they're just a handful, just like 1 or 2 defendants in each of these cases. And Fani Willis, who is a state district attorney, right? So she's operating, I would say, with fewer resources, certainly, than Jack Smith, much less authority. She's going after Trump and 18 others using particularly RICO charges, racketeer influence and corrupt organizations, which is typically a charge that you bring against, like, mafia, right? Like organized crime and mafioso families, things like that. And ironically, Rudy Giuliani, before he became America's mayor, and then, of course, Trump's stooge, right? So he was America's mayor when he was mayor of New York City during 9/11, climbed to notoriety. Then, of course, he lost any esteem and pedigree he had by just, prostrating himself before Donald Trump, losing all credibility, all respect. So before he was America's mayor and then America's stooge, he was actually a really accomplished prosecutor in the 80s, and he, pioneered the use of RICO charges to go after organized crime groups. So it's ironic that Fani Willis is actually using, basically the playbook. It's like playing sports against a legendary coach and using his tactics against him when you're up against him. So as Axios notes, these RICO trials tend to be very long, arduous, resource-demanding enterprises. And so it's even more surprising that Fani Willis has actually requested that there be a trial date within 6 months, March 4th, 2024. Right? So, I mean, Fani Willis is an experienced attorney, right? So presumably she knows what she's doing. And again, most legal scholars agree the case against Donald Trump is pretty strong here. But I guess part of me, and of course I'm not an attorney, I'm graduated with a degree in political science, but that's not a law degree. It does make me wonder as a layman, make sure you haven't bitten off more than you can chew, even though, again, the case against Trump himself is incredibly strong. So there's a lot to say about this particular development. The MAGA movement, Cult 45, they have not reacted to it well at all. And again, it comes on the heels of 2 federal indictments by special counsel Jack Smith. And, there may be future indictments to come. There's Letitia James, the New York State Attorney General, who wants to bring a civil suit against the Trump Organization, which, if successful, would effectively kill the Trump Organization and their operations in New York. So he's looking at, Alvin Bragg, the New York District Attorney. He's looking at Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York. He's looking at Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney out of Georgia. And then 2 parallel special counsel cases over classified national defense information and then the attempt to steal the election from Joe Biden. It's 5 major resource-demanding indictments going into an election year. So, of course, I have no sympathy for Trump, and I think a lot of people don't. I'm sure Judge Aileen Cannon in the classified documents case, she's going to bend over backwards to accommodate him, but I doubt the others are. So it's hilarious. I love to see it. It's going to be great. But, again, hopefully, District Attorney Fani Willis has not bitten off more than she can chew.